Welcome to this Combating Social Engineering webinar. My name is Mandana White and I'm the CEO of Smart Grid Forums. I'll be your host for today. But before we get started with the program, I'd just like to highlight a few administrative details with you to ensure the smooth running of the program for you today. First of all, just to familiarize you with the platform, you'll see to the right of your screen that we have a chat panel there, and that's really for informal communication. So introduce yourself, state what you're hoping to achieve from the webinar, and flag any technical issues that you think we need to be aware of there. We'll keep an eye on the chat panel as we go through the program. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's an Ask a Question link. Please use that link to post your questions as they occur to you as we go through the presentations. And do state the name of the speaker that your question is for at the beginning of your question so that we direct it in the appropriate manner later on. There's the function to upvote any question that's already there as well. So if you like a particular question that's already been put on the panel, please do upvote it so that we can prioritize it for addressing later on. At the end of the webinar today, we'll be sending you an email with a few questions about what your experience has been of the webinar, what you liked about it, what worked, what could be improved. Do feedback everything that you felt about the webinar so that we can keep refining these programs and meeting your information needs in the most effective way going forward. So now for the program today, the program consists of 3 10-minute presentations, which will run back to back, and then 20 minutes of Q&A and panel discussion. So again, please do post as many questions as possible. We want to make sure that the program is really interactive and that all of your questions are answered by the end of the session. Right, now I'd like to invite Valerian up to the screen, our first speaker for the day. Hello, Valerian. And just to give you a little bit of background on Valerian, Valerian Rosinu is a security architect at CrowdStrike. He has 13 years of experience in fighting hackers, both in Europe and the Asian region. As a seasoned risk practitioner, Val knows the threat vectors and understands how they operate, which enables him to design security strategies that stop breaches. So with that, Val, I'd like to hand over to you, and please do bring up your presentation.
Absolutely, Mandana. Thanks a lot. I'm sure you can see my screen. This is a real pleasure to be with you today, and great afternoon to everybody. So we're going to talk a little bit about social engineering, cybersecurity, and how we can combat, that plague that we have today. So you can call me Val, if during the Q&A. But I'm working at CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike is cloud-delivered endpoint security company, and we do also threat intelligence. So we have a unique look at the adversaries, the hackers, and how they're operating. I'm living in Singapore, and prior to that, I had various roles, such as incident responder, and I was building security operation centers for customers. So the problem we are having today is breaches are everywhere, right? So many organizations have been breached, and if you look at the news, the headlines, there is not a single day where you don't see a new company being breached. And for a matter of fact, if you look at the IDC research, 1 out of 3 organizations has been breached in the last 12 months. So 33% of the organization out there in the world have been breached or didn't even know that they got breached already. So there is a hacker inside their environment. So the question is, why is it happening? We have been investing a lot in security tools, in hygiene, but yet it is still happening. And I want to give you a picture of that, why we're still seeing the hackers getting in. So the first thing is, we have transformed the way we actually work, right? We don't work from office. We work from airport, from Starbucks, from anywhere, from home, especially now in the pandemics, right? The second aspect is we live in a hybrid cloud. A lot of the services that we use today in our day-to-day life are actually not in traditional data centers, right? Some are in the cloud, some are in on-prem, as we say it. It's a very hybrid world. And the final portion is digital transformation. So we have that incredible move to the digital world, which makes us a little bit, it's harder to secure that environment because it's very fluid. And hackers are taking advantage of that. So what we're seeing from a hacker perspective is, back in the days, we had the usual suspects, the hackers, maybe, from North Korea and some other countries that were attacking other nations or other companies in different countries. Nowadays, the hackers can strike from anywhere. So any country, any cybercrime are developing, their weapons, their cyber weapons, to attack anybody else in any other country. So you could be targeted by virtually any hacker from anywhere in the world. So that's a new trend that we are seeing in the last decade or so. The second aspect is they are getting global and sophisticated, to a point that they're sharing their tools, right? They're like collaborating. They're developing extremely sophisticated weapons to attack other organizations. We usually talk about two types of groups. We talk about e-crime, where they are more after, financial gain. For example, ransomware, extortion, cryptocurrency mining. So this is what this type of group is after. They want to try to steal something from you, and they want to monetize it. They want to make money out of it. And we have another class of groups that we call state-sponsored. So these groups are a bit more methodical. They have a purpose. They want to stay under the radar as many years as possible in the organization that have been able to breach. So they're going to steal some intellectual property. They're going to access to very sensitive information for various reasons, such as competitive advantage or to build, some sort of similar capability. And they are extremely, motivated. They will take operations that could take years to actually, be successful, but they are very tenacious. So this is the two types of group we're seeing. At CrowdStrike, we name hackers after animals. And the reason we do that is just so that when we talk about a group on our website, from one country they're actually operating. So we have the bears from Russia, we have the Cholimas from North Korea, and so on and so forth. So we publish threat reports on these groups. But the point I'm trying to make in that slide here is, in 18 minutes, a Russian hacker is able to penetrate your environment or your computer and to actually move to another computer or server and take some data thereafter and exfiltrate the data. That's how fast they are. And across the board, if you look at other countries, it's similar, right? Within a couple of hours, these hackers can break in your laptop, move to a server you have access to, take the data there, and upload it to their own infrastructure, steal it. That's how fast they are. That's another thing we need to combat, right? They are fast. We need to be as fast as them. The other point I want to make about who is our adversary, right? Knowing our enemy is very important to be able to fight them. But what's happening right now is there is a market that is developing, right? A black market, basically, on the dark and deep web. And here we have that infographics here, Amazon crime. But it's literally what you can see if you go on the dark and deep web. You can see anything that can be purchased to accomplish an attack. You can see stolen credentials. You can hire people that are going to hack other organization, launch a spear phishing campaign. You can buy a USB kit that you can drop at one organization so that if an employee picks it, plug it in their computer, then they're infected. Everything is available for a couple of €100. So this is, the environment that we are actually evolving right now. And these attacks can happen day and night, absolutely any day. You would think that, during Christmas time or New Year, the hackers would actually, be a bit more quiet. It's the opposite. They know that we are vulnerable, so they usually strike during that kind of public holidays. So the victims, right, are very diverse, right? We have enterprises, but in critical infrastructures, the #1 sector that is actually targeted by hackers is grids, right? And then it's followed by oil and gas, manufacturing, transportation, and aerospace. So definitely the hackers have been very motivated to attack all these critical infrastructure organization for various reasons, right? In the past, it was more state-sponsored, right? It's some state were actually attacking other states. That's what we're observing. Nowadays, we're seeing e-crime, criminal organization attacking some critical infrastructures. And you have seen the news, right, recently, pipelines being ransomed. So the e-crime has noticed that they might have some weaknesses in these type of structures, these organizations, and they are striking there. Another very sort of famous attack was Ukraine power grid attack, right? And there is a lot to learn from this attack. And two of the key takeaways that I'd like to bring now is this attack and all that kind of attack usually start with social engineering. That's how it starts, right? They try to exploit a vulnerability in people, in processes, and that's how they get in. And usually these attacks also start from the IT environment and not the OT environment. So people are, looking at their mail, going on internet, browsing websites, and then they download some malware, or they click a link in an email, or they download an attachment whatsoever. And that's how the attack starts. And then the attack is moving to the target, which is the OT network, where you can actually potentially plant a ransomware or steal sensitive data. So spear phishing attachments particularly remain the number 2 technique that is being used by hacker to attack the power grids. So bear that in mind, right? Combating social engineering is a priority because it's one of the major techniques that is being used by hackers to compromise you. So we have to defend ourselves against that. So I'd like to finish on that. There are many different social engineering techniques, right? The one that we really all know is spear phishing. So you receive an attachment or a link. So have impeccable hygiene about that, right? When you don't know about the sender, when the message looks suspicious, when there's a link, double check everything, the URL, have like a very structured way of approaching your email. Never pick up a USB, stick on the floor, or if you have an untrusted USB device with you, don't use it, right? Format it or whatsoever. Give it to your InfoSec service. Password hygiene is extremely important, and of course, this is common sense to all of you in that call, but still, I want to emphasize on that. Wi-Fi, when you go to public Wi-Fi, hackers are also there. Usually, they're lurking and they wait for people to go on public Wi-Fi and they try to eavesdrop and steal some things. But there are so many other techniques, right? Smishing and vishing. It's kind of like spear phishing, but on SMS or voicemail. Hackers are also developing shoulder surfing techniques, right? They'll look at what you're looking on your mobile device and they are trying to get passwords or information. There is a lot of malware in freeware as well. People are taking advantage of you not locking your workstation. Juice jacking is something we have seen recently in airports. When you actually, use a charging station in an airport, not only, the power goes through, but the data might go through. So we have seen attackers doing that. Tailgating, use of improper badges. So there are tons of techniques out there that are being used to perform social engineering. So it's a lot about awareness. So my only, advice today would be aware, right? Be aware of what you're doing in the computer, be aware of your surrounding, and that's the first step to fight social engineering. So at CrowdStrike, we actually specialize into protecting endpoint. So that what we do is we install a little piece of software on your computer, your servers, your mobile device, and we actually hunt for hacker. The second that they land on your mobile device or your laptop or server, then we can actually track down the attacker and hunt them and kick them out of the infrastructure. So that's what CrowdStrike can provide. On that, I would advise everybody to stay very vigilant. about all these topics, and I'll give the ball back to Mandana.
Thank you, Val. That's fantastic. Great message. I think I think it's quite clear from everything you're saying that the power grid is going to be under increased attack going forward. So time to get vigilant about that. Thank you so much for your contribution, Val. I'm going to ask you to take your seat back in the audience, and then we'll get you to come back when it's time to take the questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Okay, so do post your questions for Val in the Ask a Question panel, and do upvote any questions you see there that you'd like to see prioritized. So now we're going to move on to our next presentation from Joanna Abreu, who is the Cybersecurity Manager at Portuguese utility eRedis. So Joanna, I'm just going to ask you to come up. There we go. Right, so just to give you a little background on Joanna. Joanna is the cybersecurity department, works at the cybersecurity department at eRedis since February 2020, where she is currently responsible for managing GRC activities, the certified ISMS of the organization, and the cybersecurity awareness and training program. So Joanna, welcome. I'm going to ask you to share your screen and hand over to you. Thank you.
So hello, everyone. Could you, I think you're seeing my screen already.
We can see, yes.
Thank you. So I am Joanna Abreu, and I work at the cybersecurity team at Erich, where I'm responsible, amongst other activities, for managing the cybersecurity awareness and training program. I'm very pleased to be here at this Smart Grid Forums webinar, also learning from Val and CrowdStrike's experience, and from Yele and Obi4, and of course to be sharing with you our experience on this topic, on how we at Erich are developing, deploying, and reinforcing a cybersecurity awareness program in order to train our employees to act as the first line of defense. So let me just give you a swift overview of who we are. Erich is the Portuguese DSO, okay? We are based in Lisbon. We were formerly named EDP Distribution, since we are a part of a wider energy group, the EDP Group, which is a global energy player. In terms of numbers, let me just point out that we are 3,000 employees, and we operate more than 400 primary substations that are scattered throughout mainland Portugal. So what are our main challenges today? So without a doubt, digital transformation of the grid. And cybersecurity cannot be in the way of this progress. So we are talking about advanced metering infrastructure, about renewables and DER, about automation and sensoring, or electric vehicle connecting to the grid. So the first challenge is, consequently, the proliferation of these new and diverse equipments throughout the grid, as you can see in the image, that are expanding our surface that is exposed to attacks. Second, we have to manage legacy systems and at the same time new technologies. And this definitely creates new streams of value, okay, integrating IT and OT solutions, but exposes our critical OT perimeter to cyber threats. Third, supply chain attacks. So every supplier that connects to our OT network is a potential risk. And I think the SolarWinds attack brought new empowerment to this concern. Fourth, and also very important, we are under a strong regulation. In light of the NIS directive, we are considered essential services and critical infrastructure operator. And with this comes more demands and more pressure to have a well-structured and a systematic strategy for managing cybersecurity. And last but not least, and Val talked a bit about this, we are witnessing a significant growth of successful attacks on critical infrastructures. And in particular, DSOs are facing different and complex threats which are accompanying this digital transformation. So, like Val mentioned, grids are the number one target, and we have witnessed real attacks on substations, causing extensive blackouts like the Ukrainian attack. So, if we take a look at some recent stats about the most common attack methods, they surely support that people have an essential role against the most relevant cyber threats, since social engineering continues to be the top reported attack method. One of the key findings of Interpol's Internet Organized Crime Threat Assessment of 2020 was precisely that social engineering remains a top threat to facilitate other types of cybercrime. And just for you to get a sense of numbers, in April 2020 alone, Google blocked on a daily basis 18 million malware and phishing related to COVID-19. So when we talk about social engineering, we talk mainly about phishing, okay? But we also talk about other types of attacks, smishing, and in Portugal, with the pandemics, we witnessed a significant rise in smishing and also phishing. And we have reported incidents of phishing here at TechEdge, fortunately not successful ones, and many other examples of social engineering attacks. Because the thing is, technology will always respond the same way, but humans don't. And so social engineering will continue to explore new vulnerabilities on us, people. So there's definitely still a long way to go when it comes to training employees to be aware of social engineering. So for instance, when it comes to phishing, benchmarks from KnowBe4 show us that in companies with no training, about 40% of employees are still clicking the link. And if we take a look at average stats, so with a mixed baseline of companies with or without training, a training program from Terra Nova, for instance, and if we particularly focus on our sector, the energy sector, we see that more than 20% of employees are still clicking the link, the malicious link, and almost 15% are submitting passwords, so critical information. So considering all of this, the challenges, the frequent attack methods, the human factor, we here at TechEdge find it crucial to address cyber risks with much more than only technology. Employees should definitely be one of the main priorities of organizations, if not the number one. And this is why our OT cybersecurity strategy includes one of these objectives, which is to train employees to act as the first line of defense. And considering this objective, this is why we have implemented a comprehensive training and awareness program on cybersecurity with 6 target audiences, including, as you can see, not only the technical experts, okay? So for instance, we train top management, you can see at the 4th level, because we believe that without top-down commitment, it would be impossible to reach a strong cybersecurity culture. And we do this through seminars or workshops or even simulation gaming, okay? We also include on our training our third parties and outsourcers to level the risk on our supply chain. And I can share with you that we are currently working with our legal department on trying to include our critical service providers, meaning those who access our OT network, on our phishing campaign program, okay? And most importantly, we have initiatives targeting our 3,000 employees. And I can also share with you that we are currently developing a phishing e-learning based on the Google phishing quiz. And we have high expectations for this new initiative that we are deploying. And many of these initiatives, especially the practical courses that we offered, are powered by a cyber gym of the ADP group. what we call the EDP cyber range. And this is one of our most valuable assets for training. So let me just show you some examples of phishing campaigns that we did. This one is very recent. We just deployed it last month, and it was related to the name change of our company. So it targets all of our 3,000 employees. But we also do campaigns specifically to our OT users, that is, the employees who access our OT network. They are usually scatter-related emails. And in terms of phishing-specific awareness, we are trying to shift the mindset and changing the strategy to get our employees to apply mindfulness to phishing. So stop, think, and if necessary, ask our SOC, instead of just giving them a technical list that they should check in order to figure out if an email is phishing or not. And this is mainly due to the fact that phishing is getting more and more complex every day, and our technical checklists may not be enough. But the thing is, the human sensibility to grasp certain suspicious traits in emails, if properly trained, can be much more effective. And on a final note about our phishing program, we also have evaluation metrics to assess the efficiency of our awareness initiatives based on the benchmarks that I've shown you earlier. And last but not least, we also work closely with our communication department in producing gadgets to offer to our colleagues, and that we believe raise curiosity and empathy towards cybersecurity, like these examples that I'm showing you here, a mousepad with what we call the 5 golden rules of cybersecurity, and also awareness posters, and even a cybersecurity mascot to be associated with all of these communication pieces. I would like to end my presentation with this famous cartoon that I think all of us in cybersecurity enjoy sharing. And it illustrates a cliche, but I think it is important to stress that people don't necessarily have to be the weakest link. On the contrary, our employees can actually be the strongest. We have seen employees report phishing campaigns within a minute, after they were launched. So you see, a massive phishing attack would be stopped by these aware employees. So I'll just leave you with these key takeaways that I think sum up the points that I've tried to convey here today. Thank you so much for your time, and feel free to ask me any questions on the Q&A panel.
Great, thank you so much, Joanna. Yes, please do ask as many questions as you have through the Q&A panel. Joanna, thank you for your contribution. We'll ask you to take your seat back in the audience, and we'll ask you to come back in 10 minutes for the Q&A session. Thank you. Right, okay, and so now we have Jelle Wieringa, who is a security awareness advocate at KnowBe4. So Jelle, let's bring you up to the screen. Okay, so as Jelle's coming up, a quick background on Jelle. Jelle has over 20 years of experience building a bridge between IT and the business. In his current role as security advocate for EMEA for KnowBe4, he helps organizations of all sizes understand why more emphasis is needed on the human factor and how to manage the ongoing problem of social engineering. His goal is to help organizations and users increase their resilience by making smarter security decisions. Hello, Jelle.
Oh, hi. Don't know why it took a while, but I'm here.
Yes, apologies. I kept missing you in the list there, but here you are. Wonderful. Right, I'll take off now.
Sure, I'll share my screen and then we should be good to go. There you go. So, welcome everybody. As already said, my name is Jelle Wieringa. I've got 10 minutes to close the ranks on all of the people that already went before me today. Really cool presentations, thanks for that. So I am Jelle Wieringa. I work for KnowBe4, as already explained. The only reason I show this slide is because of the Let's Go Humans stamp on it. I joined KnowBe4. I've been in the business for 20 years, and I joined KnowBe4 specifically because the only thing KnowBe4 does is look at the human side of cybersecurity. And after having worked at MSSPs, resellers, and organizations out there, I wanted to strengthen that human side a bit. So what do we do at KnowBe4? For those of you that don't know us, we actually help organizations to manage the ongoing problem of social engineering. It's an ongoing problem. It doesn't go away. It most likely never will go away. Has to do with the fact that humans, we are hard to train, and the bad guys seem to come up with new ways of manipulating us all the time. And just to get the record straight, social engineering to us means the act of manipulating or exploiting human characteristics to gain access to personal information or protected systems. It's as simple as that. It covers a lot of bases, as my previous colleagues already explained, things like phishing, smishing, etc. But the most important thing to remember is that what social engineering entails is manipulating the emotions of a person, getting them to do something that the attacker wants them to do without thinking too much. So they leverage a sense of urgency, for instance, where they tell you, look, your password has been compromised. Use this link to change it right now. It has a sense of urgency in it, but also a sense of fear that's often applied to phishing. And when you look at things like social engineering via WhatsApp, the smishing part, yes, the S is for SMS, but we hardly use SMS anymore. It's now Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp Messenger. So things like that employ things like helpfulness or self-interest. If you get a small text message from your son or your daughter or your wife or whoever your partner telling you, look, I'm in the store and my bank account isn't working anymore, please send me a small amount of money. That sort of thing, that's all social engineering. And we see that happening a lot. Actually, the whole WhatsApp thing is really growing nowadays. So social engineering attacks encompass about 70 to 90% of all successful attacks we see today. That's a huge amount. If you look at all the rest, like 20 to 40% comes from unpatched systems, and everything else, every other attack you can think of is in that 1 to 10% range. So social engineering is by far the biggest threat factor out there. We need to start protecting humans more. We need to start protecting and caring about our employees more. And it's not a choice. In your sector, in the smart grid sector, digitization is key. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, basically. So digitization, new technologies that we use, new features that we use, things that actually provide our businesses with whole new business lines, whole new ways of increasing income or sustaining our businesses, have become reality. And with so many new advancements out there, what we see is that technology drives features that customers want. That doesn't mean that cybersecurity follows in the same suit. Mostly, cybersecurity follows later on, often after big incidents take place. That's the case, for instance, when ransomware was introduced so many years ago. The first ransomware attack, well, we were defenseless. We didn't have any proper security measures or mitigative measures that we could employ to fight against it. It took a couple of months at least for smart people to think about new defenses. And you can use technology for the side, but you also have your process side, right? You can cover a lot with solid qualitative processes that you build that ensure security. But the same thing goes for that. Security in general, especially if you look at new trends like the new Industry 4.0, is that security is an afterthought. It comes after the fact. And if you look at the attacks that have been done on the smart grid industry at large, and CrowdStrike already mentioned it, social engineering definitely is the biggest attack vector today. It is very interesting, though, that if you look at the threat actors, those that are attacking the power grids, it's all externally driven. It's all people from the outside, cyber criminals, nation states that want to get in. And especially nation states they're a very powerful group, often employing not an army of their own, but hiring other hacker groups to do the hard work for them. So it's a combination of multiple layers of attacks, multiple layers of threat actors out there that is effectively causing havoc today. And I won't go into all the details. I won't go into all the examples, because just look at the media. There's plenty of examples out there of ICS, SCADA, or modern systems that get attacked successfully. And we all know this. So it's not enough anymore to understand that, yes, we are being attacked. We need to act. We really do need to act. And the way most organizations act is by, well, going back to a very old mythology. Dr. Harold Leavitt came up with the diamond model, and what you see here in front of you is a smaller part of it. It's the people, process, and technology side, where these all three work together in a holistic approach to give you a security posture. If you combine them correctly, well, you're unbeatable. At least that's what Harold Leavitt thought. Unfortunately, what we see happening today is that organizations tend to rely on the technology side of things too much. The technology side is king, and it's easy. I get it. It's easy to buy equipment, to switch it on. It works automatically. It works autonomously. You don't have to think about it. Just maintain it and you're done. And it will definitely secure you, but not enough. Because social engineering, unfortunately, there's no technology out there that can actually safeguard you from social engineering, because you're not attacking technology itself. If you get a phishing email, it doesn't have to have a malicious payload in it, but you as a user need to recognize that it has malicious intent. That's where security awareness training comes in. Now, processes and technology usually go hand in hand, and organizations usually have a good grasp on those. But the human factor, the people side of security, that's hard to do. It is very hard to train people. We understand this. We do it on a daily basis. We provide a platform for security awareness training and automated phishing. So we see customers, talk to customers every day and understand their frustration. And that frustration usually comes from people not wanting to be trained. And that's why organizations give up. They set about, buy a great product like our product and set it out in the wild into their organization. They create training programs and people dive into it. And the first training goes absolutely brilliantly. They get a good grade. They get their exams right. They learn all of the theory and all of the content. That's not the issue. The issue is when security awareness training needs to translate into secure behavior, because that's in the end what we want to do. I don't care about people only knowing about phishing. I want them to be able to detect it in the wild and actually have the right skills to combat it. So I'm not going to talk to you today about all of the different types of phishing, all of the different types of social engineering, or all of the tips and tricks on security content itself. I'm going to talk to you about the fundamentals for successfully training people, because that's where it should and ought to start. It's fairly simple if you think about it. Everything boils down to motivation. How can you motivate your workforce to pay active attention and have security as top of mind? How can you get that security culture in which your organization can feel safe and where everybody contributes to that safe idea and safeguards the data, safeguards all of the computers and the machines that are in your organization? Well, it starts out with first setting them a direction. Tell them why we're doing this. And a lot of companies tend to forget this. They kind of tell you, look, you need to do this. You're an employee, we need to be safe, so you need to do security awareness training. It doesn't work that way. People need to know what's in it for them. So we need to explain that to people. The second part comes in the autonomy part. People are motivated by being able to go about it themselves. Yes, they need direction, so that's what we're giving them in the first part, but they also need to be able to be free and have that security awareness training in a way that suits them. Whether it be in their office looking at small little movies or playing video games about it, or on their way home in the bus when they're commuting and looking at their iPhone or whatever tablet or machine they have and just enjoying that content on the way home. It really doesn't matter how people want to learn. The essential is that they learn and that they actually create and cultivate those skill sets. And the third thing that motivates people is a mastery of what you're doing. And we see a lot of organizations that have security awareness programs out there that train their people twice or 3 times a year. They pull them into a big room, put a consultant in front of them that knows all about security awareness, and they get drilled for 2 to 3 hours. And while that has its use, it's not perfect. It works way, way better if you give people short, intermittent micro-learnings. 5 minutes a month is all it takes. 5 minutes a month in a way that they like it. If they're on the factory floor, fine. Do it in a morning meeting. Do it during their lunch. Have a TV screen up there showing content while they're having lunch. Something like that. Make sure that people have the idea that they're actually progressing their skills and progressing their knowledge intermittently. So small little victories work better than large, smaller victories. And there's a lot of frameworks out there that help, right? NIST is one I really like. And the one reason I like it for is because NIST has recently changed its mindset a bit and is now encouraging people to use realistic phishing emails. Meaning phishing emails that come from the wild, are stripped of their malicious payload, and then introduced into the organization as training material. And I really do believe that real world attacks that have been cleaned of all the bad things, but represent everything realistic, everything that's really out there and can confront people. If we use that, people have relevance, people have something real to look at. That's a great thing that NIST has done. And then lastly, I looked at, when preparing this speech, I was looking at the health and safety aspect of things, and I came across the history of health and safety. And the one thing I was missing in that was cybersecurity. So the last little detail I want to add to this is, let's all just work to make cybersecurity the same as health and safety, an integrated part that makes sure that we protect people, protect employees, and protect our organizations from harm. That's basically it. Thanks for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jelle. Wonderful. So if you'd like to stay with us now, I'm going to call up our other speakers. And then we have a number of questions here from the audience that we'd like to address. Right. So let's ask Val to come back up. And also Joanna. Fantastic. Really great insights, guys. Thank you so much. So we'll just wait for Joanna. Thank you. Great to have you here. Right. So we've got quite a few questions here. I'll start with one that's been upvoted by a number of people, and it's from Miguel Silva. It's for Val initially. So the question is there any particular social engineering technique that you've observed most recently, Val? Something new that's come up?
Something that I've observed, maybe not recently, but in the past years, is related to spear phishing emails. So what we're seeing is a lot of the hackers, not only they will craft a very a legitimate email, the content, the attachment, everything is going to be very legitimate. But what they also do nowadays is they follow up by calling the employee, the victim. And just talking to a human, impersonating whoever, right? Impersonating, I don't know, like the help desk or whatever the phishing scenario is, has increased the success, 3 or 4 times. Just having that real human at the other hand of the phone and saying, yeah, you just received an email. You please click that link and download that software. We need to remotely troubleshoot your computer or whatsoever. It is a new technique we've seen. So they're getting creative, right? Very creative to get in. We are trying to put barriers, but still they're trying to overcome some of the obstacles. So I found that a pretty interesting movement from hackers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, creative and more targeted as well. Val, have you noticed any particular or a pattern in the type of profile of employees that the attackers are really targeting now?
It's hard to gauge, a lot of it happens in the first phase of an attack, which is reconnaissance. Mm-hmm. So whatever is on LinkedIn, right, whatever is on Facebook, whatever is on Instagram is being used, right? So I would say the people that have a large footprint on internet are likely to be victims. But then, I don't blame anybody for clicking a link, right? If myself, right, I'm receiving an email from my CEO or my CTO of the company, right, and if it's well crafted, there is this urge to click, right, because that's important. So, business email compromise are still pretty big, right, impersonating very high executives. But yeah, if you can get, let's say, the highest target in our organization, then the secrets you get access to are pretty amazing. So we had this dark hotel group, right? They were targeting 5-star hotels just because they knew that executives were visiting these hotels. And if you can actually get into executives, mobile phone or laptop, the amount of secrets that you can get is far better than maybe some of the employees.
Yeah. Great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's an interesting point about the social media profiles as well, and how perhaps teams should be managing their profiles going forward, how much to give away and how much to hold back online. Right. Okay, so question for you, Joanna. Can you share with us some of those evaluation statistics for phishing learning campaigns on the resilience of the company?
Mm-hmm. So I've shared in the presentation the 2 metrics that we currently have in place. So the metric for clicking on the link and the metric for submitting sensitive information. And these are the two metrics that we have in place at the moment, and the targets that we have are aligned with the benchmarks that I showed you for our sector. What we would like to also implement in the next, I would say the next year, is also a target for the reporting metric. So to have an assessment of employees who are reporting phishing, not only for the phishing campaigns that we do, because we already have that metric. We haven't defined a target for that one, but we would like to extend that to the report of real phishing. So we will work on this because we think that this is another level of maturity when it comes to phishing awareness, to be able to understand which employees are aware and who is really with us on the first line of defense.
Right. Okay. And with the existing metrics, have you seen a discernible difference in terms of the cyber resilience of your organization since you've introduced those metrics?
Well, it depends on the campaign that we do. When we do a more sophisticated campaign, results are lower than we would like. Sometimes when we, I think it was Yali that was telling about when we take real phishing and put that into a phishing campaign, sometimes the results are better, are in line with the targets that we are defining.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. So here's a general question for anybody who would like to address it. What's a business secret today at the time of advocating for publicly available data? And what is the order of priorities in data protection in an electric power company? This is from Vladimir.
First of all, if it's a business secret, it's not a good secret if everybody knows about it. But that's why it's a secret. But what we see, there's still, and we do think that's one of the reasons why people keep it a secret, is there's a lot of shame when it comes to social engineering attacks that actually work, to successful social engineering attacks or social cyber attacks at all. There's a lot of shaming and naming going on in the business by media. And not coming forth with the statement that you've been hacked in whatever way kind of negates the ability to collaborate with other organizations that have the same thing. So I think it's a bad thing. I think we definitely should go out there and tell people what happened, because then you can get the help that we need and you can improve. And if you look at the data, what priorities in data protection for an electrical power, it all depends on what you value most. If you do a business impact analysis of any form, you'll know what's most important for you as an organization. You know what's most critical for you as an organization. I can't think of a good priority for anything. It really depends on your organization. The only thing I'd tell you, if you don't know, go look at it right away, because the one thing you're protecting is data. Whether it's your data, that of your customers, that of your suppliers, it doesn't really matter. But data rules nowadays. Data is what the cyber criminals go after. Yes, they want downtime, sure, especially if you look at critical infrastructure, but they also know that critical infrastructure has really valuable data. That's what they go after. That's their money back, basically.
And yes, after the SolarWinds attack, I mean, they have access, these criminals, to quite a lot of data that could lead to many other attacks in future. But what's your view on that? That's a good point you've raised, Jelle, about the shame that companies feel about having experienced the breach. I mean, it's just the norm these days. It is what it is. And I guess, how can we shift that? Because it's not helpful for people to feel that way, withhold information, not contribute to the intelligence pool, and not help the good guys get smarter about how to block these attacks in future. Withholding information just withholds progress. How do you think we can shift that within the Power Grid environment?
Well, the one thing we tell our customers is naming and shaming is bad, whether it's done by the media to your organization, but it's even worse if you do it internally. Everybody will be hacked one day, one point, some point. Nothing. There's no such thing as 100% secure. It simply doesn't exist. And the whole point of security awareness is enabling people to defend themselves. But it's as an organization, it's your responsibility to enable that employee through training and through having the security and technology that you offer them, etc. So the one thing we all should start doing is not punish people, but incentivize people. If you've been hacked, go out there. It can be scary, and most of the really big hacks I've been involved in, or recoveries from that, because that's the part I'm involved in usually. What you see is it's management that's just afraid of their job. Management that's afraid of the impact it will have on shareholders, in the impact it will have on company valuation, things like that. That's not something we can change easily. But the one thing you need to do as an organization, no matter what you do, is make sure that you're there for the employees that have been victimized by a social engineering attack. You start doing it, and we all start doing it, it will change. The whole culture will change slowly, but it will.
Short-term pain for long-term gain, isn't it? But it's unavoidable. We have to start sharing. Great. Okay. So on to our next question, which is from Miguel Silva again, and it's for Val. So Val, the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly drawn attention to the critical nature of data. We saw a significant shift from the importance of data security to the importance of data availability. I'd like to know your point of view on this topic. And also, do you think this shift is negative, has had a negative impact on some companies?
This one question or like three?
Yes.
I'm trying to decrypt a little bit the question as you read it. So I guess the bottom line is data security versus data availability, and I don't think they have to be exclusive, but it's OT environments, right? Is all about availability, because there might be a loss of life at the end of the day. But yet we're seeing a lot of OT environment going cloud. So it's happening, right? Because the sheer amount of metrics data you need to collect to make these power grids work and any other critical infrastructure is so massive that you need the cloud to sort of like cut through it. So I'd say it's a bit similar to what we do, right? So CrowdStrike, we can be deployed on the control center, on the HMI, right? And we take some of the data that is happening on these devices. What are the processes being started? What is the user doing? What are the registry keys? Whatever is happening on the endpoint, and we send that to the cloud because we need machine learning to actually dissect it. We need behavioral analysis, AI. So we have a bit of some customers that are a bit reluctant to send that data to the cloud, right? Because they are like, this might be very sensitive. But it's the only way to protect these systems, right? It's the only way to perform AI and detect these pretty advanced adversaries So I think there is a balance to be found, right? And it depends on each organization. But definitely we can achieve that data security versus data availability sort of challenge.
Mm-hmm. Joanna, do you have any views on that question from within the Power Grid environment?
Well, it's like Val said, in terms of our OT cybersecurity, high availability is the pressing matter. So we're still not at the point where we are concerned about confidentiality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Okay. All right. So we have a question for you, Yele, from Miguel Silva. Miguel says that they train their employees but still have issues with phishing links being clicked on. Is there anything else that they can do to mitigate this?
Okay, so I assume they're already doing security awareness training, because that's the easy way to do it. But usually what we see in organizations that are doing security awareness training, but the click rates, what we call phish-prone rates, are still up, is that people take that knowledge but don't translate it into secure behavior. And that's usually because organizations focus on the wrong thing. They focus on getting good results with their security awareness training, basically teaching everybody about all of the things that social engineering encompass, and having them do an exam and do well on that exam, versus the opinion that we have, where we think, look, security awareness training is a tool. That's it. It's about that secure behavior in the end. Mm-hmm. So security awareness training programs shouldn't be focused on just spreading the knowledge. They should be focused on motivating and engaging people to actually change their daily behavior, their daily routine, to build in security as top of mind, to think before you click, which is an old saying in our industry, but actually knowing about it and doing it are two different things. That's why if your phish-prone percentage is still high, maybe you need to involve the department like HR. Mm-hmm. If you're in IT, include HR. HR is more focused on the human. It's more focused on training usually. Get them in, get their help, because you need to focus more on the psychology side of things rather than the technical or IT side of things.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned in your presentation, Yele, was that you need to impress upon your employees what's in it for them to do this. So it can't just be you're an employee of this company, you need to be more cyber aware. What are some of the messages that your clients have successfully integrated into their organizations regarding that's really made their employees feel, well, I need to do this for me rather than just for the organization?
Okay, so examples are usually use cases are really good. And there's plenty of use cases available on the internet where people talk about how somebody got fired after being victimized in a ransomware attack. That's not what you want as an organization. No. But it is a fear, uncertainty, and doubt approach, but it does work sometimes. Just to impress on people, look, it's for your own protection as well. Not only that, it's also making people aware that the data they're handling, the systems they're handling, who's the customer, who's behind it, who are they doing it for? There's a lot of detachment from people that actually do their job and they simply don't know who they're doing it for. So get one of the customers in and have him tell what he's doing, what their organization is doing, so they get a better understanding what they are doing it for. And normally what we see in employees is that they're very willing to help. Almost everybody's willing to help. Yeah. They simply don't understand the impact, or they don't know how to help. Yeah. So make sure you encompass that in your messaging.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And especially when we think about the harm that's being done to employees through these attacks rather than just the harm being done to the business. Yeah. It makes it much more human and relatable.
Yeah, and just small little add to that. From an employer's perspective, it's the same. Like security awareness training adds to employee retention, because people that are victimized by a social engineering attack tend to leave the organization quicker than when they are fully protected and know what to do. So, and there's not an organization out there that can find good personnel easily at the moment. Mm-hmm. So employee retention is definitely one of the things that I talk to C-level about.
Right. Okay, great. We have one final question before we wrap up, and this is for anybody who'd like to address it. So how do we protect sensitive information handled and stored by third-party vendors? Good question.
Not my expertise. I do security awareness training with them. That is my expertise. That's only a small part of the equation.
Yeah. It's very timely though, isn't it? Joanna, do you have a view on this?
Yes, because this is one of our top concerns at the moment. We are working with the legal department to review our cybersecurity clauses in all of our contracts, mm-hmm. And trying to set up a process of self-assessments for our third parties, mm-hmm. and then also auditing them for these clauses that we are putting in the contracts. And this is something very embryonic still, but this is what we are doing.
Great. Yeah, that's great. And Val, does CrowdStrike have any recommendations for this area, for the supply chain area?
I think there's a lot of laws right now protecting data. Right? GDPR is a good example. But first and foremost, it's a framework, right? And it doesn't really forbid the collection of sensitive information. It's just saying that if the data is appropriately processed and the collection has a purpose, then it can be done. Mm-hmm. And for cybersecurity, it's a legitimate purpose to collect that data, because with that data, we can actually make sense of it and potentially identify a hacker before they move further in the organization. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a matter of knowing what we share and why we're sharing it as companies, and it can work.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Great. Well, this is a good point to stop the Q&A session. Thank you all so much, Jelle, Joanna, Val. It's been really valuable having you on the webinar today. Thanks to all of our participants as well for their questions. I hope it's been a really informative and insightful experience for you. Just to let you know, we will be sending you that email just to gauge your response to the webinar and see what you liked about it, what we can improve, so that we can provide you with information that really has a positive impact on your daily work in your organizations. You will also receive the PowerPoint presentations from all three of our speakers. Thank you for contributing those. And then finally, our next webinar is at the end of June on Wednesday the 30th, and we're tackling combating ransomware attacks. So again, a very timely topic. Hope to see you all back on the platform for that very soon. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.